Welcome back, everybody, to another Rise of Kingdoms video. This is Dragothian here, and today I have got the last installation of the best series that we've been doing over the last month or so. This is going to be the final edition, and it has to do with mixed troops. This has been the one that's been the most requested, and also the one that I forgot. So I want to make sure that I get this in front of you guys. It took a lot longer to put this together than I thought it was going to. One, I haven't used mixed troops in quite a while, obviously being the power that I am, and two, you can kind of do whatever you want with mixed troops. So I think this video is really more crucial than I thought it would be, because you've got so many choices that you may need a little bit of guidance when it comes to why you're selecting the commanders you're selecting and what are the best pairings. So I've got a couple pieces inside of this guide here that hopefully will get you the information that you need and give you the insight that you need into the commanders that you're going to be using to make the right choices. So with that in mind, let's get jumped in. I'm going to go over the legendary pairing, best of the best. I'm going to go over the epic pairing, best of the best. Then I'm going to go over the talent build for both of those pairings. And I'm also going to do kind of an add-on at the end when it comes to another way to do it, which is just as effective, but I didn't want to take away from the main premise of the guide. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and get jumped in here. I'm going to bring up the legendary pairing first. And I think this is one that most people are very familiar with. And that is going to be Julius and Barca. So Julius and Barca, reason you're going to be pairing those two up, obviously, they're both leadership style commanders. They both have troop capacity bonuses on both of their skill lines. And then they've got the leadership, the attack, and the conquering trees. So once we go into the builds, I'll kind of break down why that's important, but just so you know, you've got two talents inside of the talent trees for leadership that are critical for mixed troop type armies. Those are armed and armored to the teeth. Those provide 3% damage and reduce 3% damage across the board. So very, very important if you're going to do a mixed troop type army, to have those two talents. And again, we'll go into that in the actual talent build, but the reason these two synergize so well, okay, so they both have some kind of skill damage. It's not a whole lot, but it's enough to at least make sure that you're organizing your pairing correctly. So you want to have Julius primary, so that that first skill that Julius has that buffs all damage by 30% affects Barca's primary skill when it goes off afterwards, giving that skill damage that Barca has more oomph. The debuffs that both of these commanders provide, along with the troop attack bonuses and the fact that Barca's skill line provides extra damage whenever you are doing, or whenever you have more than one troop type in your army. It also provides extra damage if you are off of an alliance tile. So that includes Ark of Osiris. That includes any type of fighting off of an alliance tile in Lost Kingdom. Same thing in your regular kingdom as well. So there's a lot of damage bonuses and crowd control style debuffs that allow a Julius Barca group with mixed troops to be pretty successful. The main thing that really helps with these two is the fact that they both have a troop capacity bonus. So what that means is if you have a maxed city hall, you can have roughly 200-ish to 210, depending on what your VIP level is, 210, 200,000 troops in your army without any buffs. Now, with these two combined, I think it's more in the neighborhood of 250 to 260. And then on top of that, you can put an army enhancement buff using the items. So there's a 25 and a 50% variety. I think the maximum you can get with a 50% buff with these two is around 363,000 troops. And no matter what you're going up against, if it's single troop type, mixed troop type, whatever it is, having that many more troops than your opponent it's almost unbeatable because of how many troops you're going to have. Now, if you're facing somebody that's maximum nuke and it can easily eat through some of those troops, then it might be a little bit more difficult of a fight for you. But this is a really good pairing, and honestly, this sometimes will beat an infantry group, to be honest, because of how many troops you can bring to the field. Now, let me bring up the epic pairing, and this might be a little bit different than what you guys might be thinking of, but again, I try to think not only of the best pairings, but who is going to be using these pairings, okay? So again, if you've got a maxed out Julius and Barca, you've put some money into the game. I mean, let's be honest, even with folks that started day one, you're not going to have a Max Barca unless you bought into the VIP program. And then with Julius, unless you've been winning the Mightiest Governor events or you've only focused on Julius as your only legendary commander that you're putting sculptures in, you're not going to have a max unless you not put something into the game. So money-wise. So this is going to be for a pairing where you're an investor, if you want to think about that. For those of you that don't have that kind of investment capability or don't want to, whichever works for you, and it's fine. You can still have tons of fun in the game doing it any way that you want. For those of you, though, that have really good, solid, epic pairings but haven't quite gotten the legendaries up and running just yet, the pairing that I picked for the epic pairing, the best of the best, is Scipio and Joan. Now, hear me out. Scipio and Joan really work well together, because, again, they still got the leadership, the attack, and the conquering tree. But secondly, Joan obviously has a buff that buffs all troop types. So they're going to have the same talent buffs from the talent tree that I'm going to show next, from Scipio and from Julius respectively. But with Joan, the primary skill that Joan provides buffs cav, archers, and infantry. So with that in mind, you're going to be buffing your entire army. Now, the next step thought process is the folks that are going to be using this type of troop army, especially if it's mixed troop, they're going to be in the middle of the pack, right? They're going to have 15 to maybe 20 million at most power, generally. Or it's the fifth army of somebody who is more powerful and just doesn't have enough troops. With that in mind, you want this army to not only be really tanky and provide utility, but also benefit not just you, but your whole alliance. So my thought process with the best of the best epic pairing is that you can come in on the back end of a wave. You're not going to be on the front line with this, right? I think we all can agree with that. And it's not meant to be. You want to bring your army in right behind the front wave, be in a position where you're not tanking a high nuke, heavy nuke type of commander or army that you're going up against. Find something that's either fairly squishy or low on troops or as an infantry style army, because what you want to be doing is pounding out these buffs. Your value to your alliance and to the objective that you're trying to achieve on the battlefield will be immeasurable. You won't be able to put a price on the value that you'll bring by not only buffing your own army and staying alive and staying in the battle, but also buffing the people that are on the front line that have those maxed out legendaries, those T5 armies, things like that. Because 9 times out of 10, nobody's using Joan. So if you can be that guy, if you can be that 15 to 20 mil guy that's trying to find his place, this is a really good pairing to use. And if you've got mixed troops, you're going to be really effective too, because you're going to get that troop capacity bonus from Scipio, and you're going to provide that buff from Joan for a decent amount of time. And that could be the difference in a battle, whether it's taking over a fort or a camp or a Hiron or a circle or a sanctuary or whatever it is that you're doing PvE-wise inside of Lost Kingdom. Or if you're warring and you've got 50 armies on the battlefield, having a Joan or two thrown around in there with somebody who generally is going to have an army that's going to go down in a heartbeat if a T5 comes and swipes you out, this is something that really can bring a huge value to the battlefield. And I think this would be the best of the best in Epic for that reason. Now, if you just need something for more one-on-one or very small skirmish type stuff, Scipio and Osmond may be a better situation, because you're going to get a bigger army with the second troop capacity bonus that Osmond gives you, and there's a decent amount of nuke that Osmond can provide as well, and you can actually go Osmond primary as well with that too. I've got that build for you later as well. But this is my best of the best: Julius Barca, Scipio Joan, and I hope that makes sense on the Scipio Joan. I think that, and I'm actually going to recommend this now that I've thought about it for a little while. I'm going to recommend this to a couple of people that are in our alliance that are in the high teens, low 20s, that are struggling to find their purpose and don't want to necessarily get removed for somebody who's coming in that's bigger, but at the same time they want to provide a significant value to the alliance. This is a great way to do it. Bring those Joan buffs, bring those Cleo buffs, things like that. I think Joan works really well in the situation, obviously, because of the buffs that they provide, and it hits everybody. It just hits everybody. So that's my best of the best. I didn't want to rail on too long, but I did. Let's go into the actual builds. Okay, So let me remove these down. The first build I'm going to show you is the troop damage build that we just talked about, with having either Julius or Scipio as primary. And this should be pretty straightforward, but I do want to explain a couple pieces. One, the reason we have so many talent points into leadership is because we're getting, just like I talked about earlier, armed and armored to the teeth. That provides a 3% damage buff for having multiple troops inside of your army, and then a 3% damage reduction. This is all damage reduction, okay? This isn't troop type, this isn't skill type, it's all of it. When you have 3 types of troops in your army. That's the ones that are like this on the leadership tree in the red, where they're kind of off to the side. Those are armed and armored to the teeth, okay? You also get strategic prowess. You also get close formation as well. So you get all the little buffs and bonuses that the leadership tree provides, along with a troop capacity bonus and a bunch of different attack, defense, health, damage reduction type things, which are really nifty when it comes to having a really troop damage type army. That's why the leadership tree is so good for this. Now on the attack tree, the couple ones that are really critical to have on that one is going to be effortless, and it's going to be martial mastery. I chose martial mastery versus going moment of triumph on the conquering tree. Moment of triumph is really good, but it's only applicable for the first 10% of the army health. So after it goes below 90%, you lose that buff, which is a pretty nice buff, but it goes away fairly quickly. Whereas martial mastery is a significant, I think it's 6% damage increase forever. As long as your army's alive, you get that. So to me, I'd rather have that versus 10% or a tenth of my army time on the field having that buff, if that makes sense. That being said, this is very solid, very organized, and this will work with the 3 troop types. Again, you want to be using cav, archers, and infantry. You don't want to have siege inside your army. Please don't do that. Don't do that to yourself, because that's just, you're going to be taking extra damage for no reason. But this is the troop damage build that goes with both of those pairings that I told you earlier. Now again, you can pair them up. If you've got Julius leveled up and you've got Scipio leveled up, then you can do Scipio Julius, Julius Scipio. You can do Julius Osmond. You can do Scipio Osmond. You can do it however you want. Okay, that's why this mixed troop type army is so versatile, and a lot of people use it early on because they don't have enough troops to have a single troop type of army. Now, I want to take this down before I go, because I have one more build for you, and that build is a leadership skill build. Okay, so you've got leadership attack, which is usually the bread and butter for your mixed armies. But if you want to go leadership skill, there are options now, especially with the later commanders that have come out. So let me remove this down, and let's go into our commander list. So a couple commanders come into mind. I wanted to talk about the commanders first and why this might make sense for you. The ones that come to mind are Mehmed and Frederick for the legendary tier. So with Mehmed, you've got skill damage, you've got additional damage factor if you're attacking a city. The second tier has got, or second skill has got attack bonuses and skill damage bonuses, both very nice for a nuking leadership commander. Again, when you've got the leadership talent, and all the commanders that we've talked about with the exception of Joan have the leadership talent path, and that gives you not only extra army capacity and a bunch of different buffs to your army, but usually there's a 4th skill inside of that that commander that boosts your troop capacity, which allows you to bring more troops in your army to the battlefield, which is always good, always good. Okay, again, some of these other skills are more for city focus. This isn't really my favorite open field commander, but I wanted to give you an idea of what I'm talking about, because you get the benefits of having the mixed troop bonuses with armed and armored to the teeth, close formation, strategic prowess, and also getting the benefits of the nuking skills and also the nuking talents. Okay, so let's look at more of a Frederick that gives you less city damage and more open field damage. So with him, he's got a nuke or a skill damage that triggers 3 times, and without the expertise, it's only 80%. Once you get the expertise, it's 100% chance, and really you have to max this guy out to make him effective. But you can see what I'm talking about when you've got the leadership and the skill paths on the talent trees, you can really be effective with this type of army with the same thought process that we talked about before, with having the leadership, giving you the extra troop capacity, but also some extra skill damage is really nice instead of having necessarily the attack tree with effortless and martial mastery. Okay, now on the epic side, Osman really comes to mind. He's a great nuker. This is really all he is for, is bringing more troops to the battlefield and nuking the crap out of stuff. Okay, he does have a skill that does trigger for city damage. I think that's the second one. Yeah. So again, if you are attacking a city for more than 2 minutes or for more than 30 seconds, you get a 15% troop attack bonus for 2 minutes. So that's helpful, but again, not really what we're talking about here. Open field battle. This guy gives you more troops. It gives you significant nuking damage with 1100 primary, and every time a skill is used, there's an additional 400, and that's for both skills. So really that's 800 plus the 1100 you already get. So that's a pretty significant skill damage for an epic commander. And again, having that leadership and skill tree makes a lot of sense. You can pair Osman up with any other nuker and it works really well. Boudica kind of comes to mind. Again, any of the cav only nukers like your Minamotos, your Pelagius, YSG works. These all work really well, but I think pairing Osman up with Scipio works really well for the dual epic leadership skill talent builds. And then again, you can do Osman Mehmed or Mehmed Osman, whichever one is higher. You can do same thing with Frederick Osman, Osman Frederick. Those are really good pairings, I think, especially for mixed troops. That would be a really good pairing to have. So let's go through, now that we've kind of gone through why this also can make sense, let's go through the build for that too, because I want to show you guys what that looks like. I did it on Osman because he's usually the one that most people have. Mehmed's kind of a niche commander, and Frederick's just really hard to max out unless you focused on him. So this is the build, and again, I did it enough to get strategic prowess and armed and armored to the teeth, but I really wanted to focus on the skill damage as well, so I got you Rejuvenate, and I got you Clarity. Now this really works well whenever you pair him up with another nuker on the back end. So if you've got, again, a Boudica, a Frederick, any type of nuker like that will really enjoy this type of talent build. I also got you Moment of Triumph as well. There wasn't enough points to get to Feral Nature, so I figured getting Moment of Triumph would make a lot of sense. You could have gotten to Feral Nature and put a few points into it, but not max it out. Now, if you've got two troop types two commanders that have additional skill damage, which Osman does have, although it's only 400 additional skill damage. Say you go into a Frederick, which I think also has additional skill damage, or Mehmed, same way, getting latent power would actually make a lot of sense. Putting those 3 points into latent power, making that skill talent build 36 talents, taking 3 away from something. I would say maybe removing Moment of Triumph at that point, and then maybe going as far down to Feral Nature as possible would make sense. But that, I just wanted to give you the extra because, again, I know a lot of you have been waiting on this best of the best guide, and I wanted to give you everything that I thought of inside of it and give you what I thought on what you should do for the pairings. I think the most basic ones, again, are the primary ones that I talked about earlier, but when you're talking about next level, next step stuff, and you really want to get a little crazy and do some testing, this is really where it's at. You're talking about leadership, getting you the extra capacity for troops. You got skill damage pumping out with Osman, with Mehmed, with Frederick, any other nuker as a second. And then again, Osman Scipio works really well, and you can use this exact build with Osman Scipio. You're going to have a ton of troops on the army. You're going to have a ton of damage getting pumped out with Osman. You're going to have very tanky troops with Scipio, and overall, a very solid army. Now, again, I prefer Joan because of the utility for the whole alliance that you're bringing to the table with your mixed troops. But if you are in a skirmish type situation where it's a smaller scale battle or it's one-on-one, Osman Scipio actually may be the better play. I hope this was helpful. I think I went through literally everything there is to know about mixed army. Again, for most folks, this is going to be early on stuff. Once you get into the game and you're not zeroed, hopefully, and you've got enough time to build up your troop count, you should be getting to single troop type armies at a reasonable pace, maybe a couple months into the game, maybe 3 months. Especially if you're putting a little bit of money into the game too, it can be even faster. There is a value to mixed troop armies, and again, I think the epic pairing is really where that major value is. You really should not be rallying 9 times out of 10 with mixed troops. So again, if you're doing legendary pairings on mixed troops, Julius and Barca is the best way to go. But again, I think single troop type armies are going to be always your best. Hope this was good. Hope you enjoyed it. Again, this is the last series, the last video in the series. I hope this was all beneficial for you guys. Please leave a like and comment below, and please subscribe if you have not already. Cheers. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys this Friday on the announcement live stream, and I will talk to y'all later. Take care. Have a good one, and cheers.